Hey everyone. Hello, hello. My name is Drisha Hawk. Thank you for tuning in. I'm super excited to chat with you today because I want us to talk about freedom versus security and which one do you tolerate. I think when you are stepping into this world of entrepreneurship, as you're continuing to grow your business, I was reading an article by Esther Perel, and if you guys don't follow her or not, hip to who she is. She's a relationship coach. She's like a therapist, I think. And she has studied a lot about infidelity. And she wrote a really awesome article. And there was a line in the article that really stood out to me. And she had made the statement saying, she was talking about how your personal relationships impact how you show up in business, that type of thing. And she made the statement that she learned a long time ago that she was willing to tolerate a lack of security more than she could tolerate. She was willing to tolerate a lack of security more than she could tolerate a lack of freedom. And I think that's a really interesting statement when you think about maybe where you're at right now in your business. Maybe you're full-time in your business. Maybe you're on the verge of transitioning full-time into your business. And it's like, which will you tolerate? Do you want to tolerate, do you want to tolerate security, or do you want to tolerate freedom, or a lack of security or a lack of freedom? And which one? I think it's a very conscious choice to make. And I've been thinking a lot about that ever since I read that article yesterday. I really like her specific language around, she used the word, which do you want, tolerating a lack of freedom versus tolerating a lack of security. And no matter which one you choose, I think a lot of the time people look at a 9-to-5 job as something that is secure. There's a 401k, you typically have health insurance, you typically have, how much money you're gonna make every 2 weeks. It's very predictable. There's a sense of security around that, right? And I think a lot of the time business owners typically will step out into the world of entrepreneurship because they have this desire for freedom. Even though there's more lack of security, and I guess in some people's perspective, there's this overwhelming sense of freedom that you get when you're running your own business. Now you have control over your earning potential. You have control over how you spend your time. You have control over where you work, how often you work, how much you work, who you work with, who you don't work with. There's just a different level of freedom that typically comes with it. And I wanted to invite you to think about that for yourself. And as you're doing reflecting before the end of the year and you're going into the new quarter, really think about, which do you want to tolerate? Do you want to tolerate a lack of security, or do you want to tolerate a lack of freedom? And based off of what you choose, that will then inform and dictate how you behave and what your actions are and what you choose to prioritize after that, right? I think for me specifically, when I was working full-time in corporate America, I was blessed because I did have an amazing job, an amazing career that afforded me amazing security. I had a great health benefits. I had great 401k. There was price matching with our 401k contributions. And I felt as if I had a bit of time freedom. But I was definitely sacrificing freedom in the sense of the more broader sense than I was sacrificing security. And when I decided to quit my job and go full-time in my business, that was a conscious choice to say, I'm going to tolerate a lack of security over my lack of freedom. And I like the word that she used, tolerate, specifically because there's friction no matter which one you choose. There's going to be friction if you choose to stay operating within a lack of security. Going full-time in your business, really stepping out into this entrepreneurial roller coaster ride where things are changing very much dynamically. You're basically a startup. Your business model is changing every 3 months, maybe faster than that. Your offers are changing all the time. You're hiring, you're firing, you're doing a lot of testing and trying to figure things out. Versus there's a bit more security in a traditional 9-to-5 job. If you're working at a company that's been in existence for 30 to 40 years, they know what their offer is. They know what their position is in the marketplace. They know how to sell their service. They have standard operating procedures. They know what's right and what's wrong. When you're running your own business, you're figuring that out. Like you're discovering what's right and what's wrong, what works, what doesn't work, and you have to be very nimble and flexible constantly. Things are changing rapidly and fast and all the time. But when you choose to tolerate a lack of freedom, That's just something it's just when she said that, and as I've been thinking about it, like no matter what, you're tolerating one thing or another. And I think that's just a choice you have to make as you continue to build your business, and based off what business model you choose to implement, what do you want to tolerate? Do you want to tolerate a lack of security, or do you want to tolerate a lack of freedom? And I was talking to my fiance about this as I was driving home today. And it's just like, I think we both made a decision to tolerate a lack of security over tolerating a lack of freedom in our life. We're both full-time entrepreneurs. We're both at different stages in our business. He's been full-time in his business for, I think, just now a year. I've been full-time in my business for 2.5 years. His business model has changed maybe 4 times in the past year. He's still trying to figure it out. My business has existed for 3 years, so I have a little bit more figured out than he does, but not that much more. We're choosing to lack quote unquote security, but it's just funny how you think about it. Because I think people think it's either one or the other. And it's like, I've had way more freedom in my life than I've ever experienced since I went full time in my business. But quite honestly, I have way more security, I feel like, in my business, because I'm banking on that I can control my earning potential, which I could not do in my 9-to-5. I was lucky to get a 3% annual raise at best, So I just think it's interesting, and I'm just curious to know for you, which one do you desire? Like, which one do you prefer? Which one are you willing to tolerate? Do you want to tolerate a lack of security, or do you want to tolerate a lack of freedom? And I think too, as you're making that decision and thinking about, okay, what makes sense for me based off the season of life that I'm in, based off the current responsibilities that I have, based off of I think you really have to just think about, okay, what's happening short term and what's happening long term, right? And I think this is something that as you start to strengthen your strategic thinking capabilities and really start to think and evolve your mindset as a CEO, you have to think about, okay, what's happening? What decisions am I making today that are going to impact the outcome of what my life will be tomorrow? And I think that's something that's really important, as you're continuing to grow in your business and evolve your business model and invest in different ways. You have to think about, are you playing the short-term game? Are you here for the marathon? Are you playing the long-term game? And there may be a season where you're lacking security because you are stepping out and doing something in a different way. You're making investments that maybe feel scary. But that's gonna be the thing that's gonna set you up for that type of freedom lifestyle that you want. Like these moments of lack of security will be the thing that really positions you for the freedom that you desire to have. Is that making sense? Like I'm trying to break down what's been going on in my brain and share with you guys some behind the scenes of like just how I'm processing information right now, and I'm still processing it. So let me know, is this making sense? If it is, just type it in the chat or throw some hearts up on the screen. Is this making sense for you? And if you have any questions about this, let me know. I'd love to just continue the dialogue and continue processing with the questions that you might have. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. But that's something too I was talking about with my coach today. And we were talking about just really what's required to get to where it is that we want to go, and how that looks different in different seasons that you're in. And, we were just talking about revenue goals and what's really required for me to get to where I'm at, to where it is that I want to be. And it's just like, I had to tell myself today, and really my coach helped me realize this, is that like, I can't keep making short-term decisions, expecting a long-term return on my investment. Like I can't keep making decisions that satisfy the conditions of where I'm at today, and expecting it to have this long-term ripple effect, or for it to pay off dividends in the long term. You can't have it both ways. And when I think about anything else in life, when you think about investing in your 401k, or investing in the stock market, or investing in just different investment vehicles, you're playing the long game. You're sacrificing a bit of security because there's a level of uncertainty. And typically the bigger the reward, the bigger the upfront risk, because there's a lot of ambiguity, there's a lot of uncertainty. Like think about when Uber came out and the first investors we're like, we have no idea if this business idea is going to pan out. Or when Periscope was created, nobody knew that Periscope was going to like die in like a year and a half. You know, they're thinking it's going to be the next Facebook or the next Instagram. Like, you really don't know. And so there's a lack of security that you're going to be risking, quote unquote, right? Because you don't know how it's going to pan out. But you have to decide, okay, am I going to make the decision that satisfies my short term, that keeps me comfortable, that keeps me within this box, this limiting box that I've been operating in? Or am I going to choose to step out of that box, maybe risk some security because I'm, you know, making a calculated risk. I'm taking an educated guess. And that's all entrepreneurship is. Like, when you really think about you building a business, you don't know which idea is going to really hit. You don't know which niche is going to really be the most profitable. You really don't know. Like, you can follow guidelines and follow a process, but the only way for you to find out whether or not it's going to work or whether or not it's going to have an ROI is to do it. Like, you really don't know until you do it. And this is something that I tell my students all the time is like, you're not going to know until you actually try it. So instead of and I think too, this really challenges how we define success and what we define as failure. You know, I pose this question inside of my Facebook group, which one do you prefer, like a lack of security or a lack of freedom? And a lot of people are like, you know, like, what are you more afraid of? Are you afraid of failure or are you afraid of success? And a lot of people were saying, I'm afraid of failure. Like, and also I'm afraid of success. It was going both ways, but like, you really don't know. And I think we really have to redefine how we look at what we categorize as a failure and what we categorize as success. You know, I think before, it's a lot of the time we look at, you know, success is I set a goal and either I achieve it or I don't. And if I don't achieve the goal, that means I failed. Versus, you know, I'm in my coaching, this is all coming full circle now, like my coach and just kind of doing this for 3 years, I'm redefining what success is. Success for me is, did I make a decision? Not did the decision work? Did I make a decision? And did I go all in on that decision? Did I give 100% effort on that decision? Did I do the work until it worked, type of thing? That's why I'm defining whether or not I was successful or whether or not it was a failure. You know, it's only a failure if I'm learning to define failure as, if I'm just only making decisions that keep me comfortable, that is a failure. Me trying something, giving time, energy, effort, money into something, but I made a decision and I went all in and I gave 100% effort, even if it doesn't work out, that was success. Because the only way you're going to learn is by doing. And if you only make decisions that keep you in your comfort zone or that keep you in this bubble of security, if you never take a risk, you're never going to experience a reward, right? Is this making sense for you guys? So I think when I saw this this article about, you know, which are you going to tolerate, a lack of security or a lack of freedom, it's been bringing up all these other things for me. Because a lot of people say they want freedom, but they don't want it. People say they want to have a certain life of freedom, but they're not willing to take any risk to go get it. So it's like you're self-sabotaging yourself. Like, there's no way you're going to live the life that you desire without taking some risk, without making some investment, without doing something different than what you've been always doing. You can't have it both ways. And I think this is something that, you know, even when I think about how this, anything I learn in like the natural or how it operates on earth, there's always a biblical reference, because everything is biblical at the end of the day. And I was thinking, even now that as I'm processing this, and it's like, you know, when people were declaring whether or not they, you know, stood for Jesus or didn't, believed in God or didn't, like, you can't have it both ways. Either you in or you out, right? Being lukewarm gets you nowhere. And it's just the same with everything else. So I think it's a muscle, and that's something that I'm really learning, is that to be comfortable in a space that feels insecure, or that like there's a lack of security, you find comfort in learning how to navigate those spaces, and you learn how to make decisions without knowing all the information. But I really think it boils down to just, how do you define failure and how do you define success? And if you're only looking at success as, did I achieve my goal, versus did I make a decision? Did I take action? Did I try something new? Or am I still playing in my comfort zone? Am I still doing what I've always done, but tricking myself thinking that I'll get a different result next time? Like, it does not work that way. So I just wanted to, I'm still processing, so I don't even know if this is making sense. But I hope this is making sense, or you guys are able to pick up something that I'm putting down, because I'm still processing through this myself. And really deciding too, as we are in this season of my life and going into the new year, setting new goals, doing things very differently in my business, really thinking about what makes sense for our business model next year. How are we going to, improve our offer so we can support our clients on a deeper level? What does it look like for us to help more clients get better results consistently? Like, I have to, like, am I going to choose, am I going to do what feels, that feels comfortable, or am I going to do the thing that really challenges and pushes the envelope? And I think too, like Patrice said, I'm learning how to take risk and take action without all the details. I was talking to somebody, I think this might have been the services that sell today, it's so interesting how we think doing something new means that, like, it feels like a risk. And I always invite you to think about what is the risk associated with you continuing to do what you've always done? What is the risk associated there? Because if you are afraid of failure, which, however you really challenge your notion of what are you defining as failure and what are you defining as success. But if you're only making decisions the way that you've always made decisions, what is the risk in that? Like, what is the risk in doing what you know versus the risk of what is unknown? And really evaluate each of those outcomes, each of those actual risks. Like, there's a risk associated with you doing what you've always done, with you trying to constantly DIY it, with you never raising your rates, with you not learning how to sell, with you always saying yes and never enforcing your boundaries. There's a risk associated with you doing what you've always done. And I think that's equally as important as we're quick to say what we don't want to happen. And we're quick to say, oh, well, I'm afraid that, because I can't project what's going to happen, that means something's wrong. But I think it takes a lot of discipline for you to do some internal work saying, okay, what is the risk associated with me continuing to do what I've always done? Continuing to position my offer the way that I always have, continuing to sell the way that I always have, continuing to price the way I always have. What is the risk associated with me doing what I've always done? And weigh those benefits, weigh those risks. So yeah, that's what I'm working through. But guys, we can do an Ask Me Anything. I have a little bit of time. I would love to answer some questions that you guys have. I think it's Kaladi on Instagram said, at your stage, is there still fears that you are overcoming every day? Every day. No matter where, I don't care if you're making $0, if you're making $2,000 a month, if you're making $10,000 a month, if you're making $30,000 a month. There are always fears that you will be overcoming, because you have to think about it. 3 years ago, I was working a full-time job. I was making like $80,000 a year. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be able to pay myself or make hundreds, our business does, we do about 300,000 a year now. Never in my wildest dreams. You would have told me 3 years ago that, hey, you'll have a business that makes $300,000 a year in 3 years. I would have looked at you like you were insane. And I remember, I was going, I was looking at my old journals, writing down what my income goals were. And I remember writing down, okay, one day I'm going to make $20,000 a month. And that felt so far away. Like, that felt so unattainable. So I think it's like every time you reach a new level, like I remember very vividly the first time I made $1,000 in a month. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. And then there's all these fears about, oh my gosh, am I capable? Can I do it again? Like, am I a fraud? And then, okay, we got to a point where I did $5,000 in a month. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like, this is bananas. Like, and I was still working my full-time job. So that just felt like, what? I can make all this money for my full-time job, and here I am making money in my side hustle. And like, this is insane. I love my clients. Like, this is incredible. Then there was these new fears, and I got to $10,000 a month, and these new fears came up because you're stepping into uncharted territory. Anytime you start, and then you have to then it's this constant sense of recalibration. Because when I got to a point where I was doing $5,000 a month, then I had to recalibrate that this became the new norm. So I had to learn how to operate and move and make decisions like somebody does at that level. And then you make $10,000 a month and $20,000 a month and $30,000 a month. And it's like there's always a fear. Like, I think for me, probably one of my core fears that I need to work through in therapy, to be quite honest, is a lack of worthiness. Like there's this underrooting fear that I have that I am not worthy, that I am not enough. And that rooted fear, so a lot of the things that you're saying, do I still experience fears that overwhelm me? Like you're human. Like as you continue to grow and do things you've never done before and achieve things that you never thought possible, or to achieve the things that you did think were possible, you're stepping into new territory. And like then you're literally having to evolve your identity to match where you are, and then recalibrating that as your new norm. But then you go after a new norm. So there's like always there's levels, and as you progress in the levels, there's new internal barriers that you have to overcome. But one thing that I've noticed, and I think this is with anybody that is successful, as you cannot outpace your personal growth. Okay, your success will never outpace your personal growth. And if your success does outpace your personal growth, it won't last. So I think when it comes to overcoming those fears, as you get to different levels, if you feel as if you're stagnant, and you've been stagnant for a while when it comes to how you define success, it's probably because you have not yet worked through and overcome whatever the personal work that needs to happen for you that will allow you to break through. Does that make sense? So I know for me, I'm at a point right now in my business where I'm making more money than I ever thought I would make. I'm doing things that like literally I'm the first in my family to ever do. Like I'm investing in companies, I'm building my own company, I'm in an actual healthy relationship. Like that is a success in my family, where me and my partner, my fiance, actually have a healthy relationship. We've purchased our first home, our first asset. Like we're doing things we've never done before. And I'm realizing that my financial success is being halted right now because it's trying to outpace where my personal identity is at. And that's like, I know for me, and I'm not sure, you probably know what this is for you. And if not, do some work around figuring this out. Like it's not about what do I need to do, but it's about who do I need to become. And you get to a point in business where getting to six figures is pretty simple. Like I'm not going to sit here and lie. Like if you follow a strategy and implement it, you can get to six figures pretty quick. You can probably get to about $300,000 a year following a strategy, following a process. But after that, I mean, there's tweaks you can make in your strategy, but a lot of your growth getting from $300,000 to $1 million a year is really more about who you are and really about who are you being, how are you showing up. It's more about your mindset than a strategy. Like in the beginning, I'd say having a clear strategy and knowing how to execute can get you to $100,000 to $250,000 a year. After $300,000, I'd say the tides shift, and strategies maybe 20% as important, but maybe 80% of what's happening is really about who you're being, your mindset. And that's where I'm at right now. And I realize that my biggest crutch right now is this identity issue that I don't feel like I'm enough. And I might get emotional here for a second because it's something I'm still working through. But when you really have to start peeling back the layers of why do you feel that way? Why, if you're having these symptoms of, constantly undervaluing yourself or feeling like you're not charging enough or not feeling confident in what you're doing, there's a reason why. And I know for me, my core issue is feeling like I'm not worthy or that I'm not enough. And that goes back because my mom left when I was 2. That's probably one of the most traumatic things, probably one of the most heavy traumatic things that I've experienced in my life. I mean, I grew up without, neither one of my parents raised me, but my mom was the first one to abandon me. And she left when I was 2 years old. And I think I've always struggled with feeling like I was worthy, that like me being exactly who I am is enough in the world. And feeling like I always have to prove myself. And then I think if you layer that on by being Black and being a Black woman, it just adds, I think as a Black woman, we already got it tough in America because like we're the lowest class citizen, in my opinion. If you really look at all the things, like men first and then women and then white women and then brown women. Like, it's already tough. So I think that that's like probably one of my deepest rooted issues that I have to work through in order for me to be able to continue to progress in my business at the pace and at the pace that I want to. Because if think about how that makes you show up in business, and whatever that might be for you, lack of worthiness, not trusting other people, not trusting yourself, abandonment issues, whatever it is, like codependency issues, whatever your issue is, that's showing up some way in how you're making decisions and how you're willing to take a risk and allow yourself to be in a space that feels like that does not feel secure, right? So as you get to a point in your business, like if you've been stalling out or not seeing the progress that you want, you remember that your business progress and success can never outpace your personal growth. And it's like, where do you need to do some internal work to shift your mindset, to think differently, to be able to look at problems from a different perspective and to look at things from a different lens. Like, and this is why I think it's so important to have coaches, because you can't see your blind spots. Like you need to have people on your team, whether they're coaches. I invest in coaching, I invest in masterminds. I'm right now looking for a therapist. Like those are my advisors. Like that's my board of directors. And like any successful business has a board of directors that points out their blind spots to say, hey, have you looked at this from this perspective? Hey, you're missing this. You can't see this because you're standing so close to it. And it is absolutely ludicrous for you to believe that you're going to get to a significant level of success doing it on your own. It's not possible. Like Jesus didn't get to where he was by himself. He had a crew of 12 disciples. Like he rode deep. What makes you think you can out here do this in this world and be successful in the way that God's called you to be by yourself? Like it's not possible. So I just think like, I feel like I just went on a tangent, but I hope that answered your question. Like, hell yes, there's still fears, but I will say that I'm a way better at coaching myself through those things now than I was 3 years ago. I think before either you feel a fear, either you break through it or you break down, right? And I think before I used to break down way more. Like I definitely did. I'd be on my floor bawling my eyes out, like literally immobile. Now I'm able to like coach myself through it. Say, okay, I'm having this thought that I'm having right now is not an actual fact. It is a feeling. And I'm going to honor this feeling right now, but I'm going to make a decision based off of logic and what is true, not what it feels like in this moment. So I'm able to coach myself a lot better through these feelings when they do come up, and I'm able to evaluate what's actually going on. Like, is this self-sabotage? Is this belief that I have right now, is this actually true? Is this serving me? Is this thought in benefit to where it is that I'm trying to go? Or is this a limiting belief? Is this, my ego thinking that it's not safe? Like, so I think you get better at managing it, but you're human. Like, I don't think they ever really go away. They just change and evolve. So yeah. Let me see if there's any other questions. And you guys are welcome. You guys are saying thanks for the transparency. Y'all, transparency is one of my top core values in business and in life. I'm a really big believer on, like, I want you to be able to experience the success that you want, but I believe in transparency in the sense that, like, this is what's required to get there. I'm not a fan of selling people a dream and only selling them the dream. Like, this is also what's required to achieve that dream. And then now you can make a conscious decision as a human being to say, okay, do I want to get in that boat knowing that this is what's required, or do I not want to get in that boat? Or do I want to stay in the boat? Or do I want to get out the boat? Because you know what? I'd rather have security right now than have freedom. Or, I'd rather, that's a choice. You get to make those choices. And I think, and even, again, I keep going back biblical, but even when I think about God, he's so generous, like he gives us so much grace. And he could force us to do what he wanted us to do, but he doesn't. He gives us free will. He lets us know that, like, when we choose to follow him, like, choosing to follow Christ is never an easy thing. Like, when you declare your life over to God and declare that you are a child of God, no point does he ever say that it's going to be an easy road. And it's just like, but he gives us the choice to know that like, yeah, it won't be easy, but I'm still standing here with you. Like, yeah, I may experience judgment. The devil may get real busy when you're working actively in my life. Like, there may be hardships and maybe tough times, but he allows us to choose that. And I just think like, I don't know. I've always, as I became a believer and really have been developing my faith and developing my relationship with him, transparency is just something I truly, truly value. And being able to help you understand, okay, this is what's required to get to this level. And then now you can make a conscious decision to say, okay, do I want to sign up for that or not? Do I want to go down that narrow path or not? You know, like that's a choice you get to make. So thank you guys for acknowledging that. That's very affirming, because sometimes it's hard being transparent. That's probably one of, because it's extremely vulnerable. It's a very extreme state of vulnerability to share some of these things and to like open up myself in that way, and to even model my business model around that of transparency. But for me, I think that's just what's required and what's necessary. And yeah, so thank you for acknowledging that. Hey, Brown Report. Thank you. Y'all always love my glasses. I appreciate it. Debt Not Allowed said, how do you get a majority of your leads? Through my live stream videos. The vast majority of my leads come through my Facebook lives and my Instagram lives. So she asked the question, where do I get a majority of my leads? Live video. You know, I think as you continue to grow, like I just think in the online space specifically with this, it has been preached for so long. It's like, build this business, automate your business, have passive income, never do any work. And that shit isn't true. It's just not. Like, there's systems in your business that can be automated, but there's still work that has to be done no matter what. And if you think about any successful business, Apple, Chick-fil-A, like any successful business that you look up to, they're constantly making contact with their prospects, right? You know, if you shop at Banana Republic or shop at Sephora or shop at Ulta, they are constantly creating opportunities where they're having conversation with their prospects. And in any business, it's all relationship based. So like your human beings are buying your products and buying your services, not robots. So you have to remember at all times that you're dealing with human beings that have real emotions, that have real feelings, that like, you know, we're complex in our design. And I think it was Grant Cardone who said this, and I've totally adopted this, is that conversions happen through conversations. So I get most of my leads when I speak. I get most of my leads when I'm actually communicating with my audience and just talking. And I know some people might say, well, nobody shows up to my live streams. It's like, guys, we're doing $300,000 a year. There's 13 of you on my live right now. And I know some of my clients and people who are maybe doing the lean launch method and services that sell, well, only 13 people showed up, bruh. It does not matter. Like when you're selling a leveraged offer and selling a higher ticket service, only one of you guys, like if only one of you buy my product or buy my service or tell somebody else about my product or service and refer them to me, like that's a lot of money that is made. So I get most of my leads when I do my live streams. There was a month, I've done this 2 times, where I did a live stream every morning, 5 days a week. Man, my income doubles during those months, every time. And I feel stupid the months where I choose not to do it because of whatever else is going on. But yeah, majority of my leads comes from my live stream videos and just comes from having conversations and just speaking. So yeah, that's why I'm such a big believer in our lean launch method. And if you guys aren't familiar with what the lean launch is, the lean launch is really a sales process, you know, that you can use to organically attract and convert clients. So it's really understanding basic sales not basic sales psychology, but understanding sales psychology, really adding that up with how you're going to uniquely position your offer, and strategically designing what your live streams are going to be about in a very structured way over the course of 8 weeks to be able to launch your services. But it's just live video and sales calls. And I'm a really big believer that sales happens during conversations. People convert when they're talking to somebody, you know, and there's just, I think too, something that's maybe important for you guys all to realize is that how you sell will very much differ based off of what your business model is. So I sell high ticket services. You can't buy anything from me less than $2,000. We have offers anywhere from $2,000 to about $15,000 for our offers. And if you're selling high ticket, like, you think about how luxury brands work. Think about how Louis Vuitton operates, Chanel, Saks Fifth Avenue, Stuart Weitzman, Bergdorf Goodman. Like, think about how those luxury brands operate. You know, when you come into their place of business, the experience is very different than when you go into Forever 21. You know, those higher, you know, think about when you buy a house or when you buy furniture. There are a series of conversations that are taking place that are, you know, grooming you through the sales process. And it's very true, even online, just the process looks different. So, yeah, hope that answered your question. Miss Butterfly 21 says, do your techniques work in the nonprofit industry? Our techniques work for anybody selling high ticket. So if you're in the nonprofit industry, it doesn't really matter your industry as long as you're selling a service. But it really does depend on what's the offer, you know, and what are you selling. And I think a lot of the time when you guys are evaluating programs or evaluating coaches, I would really invite you guys to ask better questions. And what I mean by that is, people say, okay, does this technique work for my industry? A lot of techniques can work for a lot of different industries, but it really boils down, does this technique work with your business model, not your industry necessarily? And I think that's a better question to ask. So because my technique is specifically designed for individuals who are selling offers that are $1,500 or more, or who want to be selling offers that are 4 figures or above. And my technique is specifically designed for individuals who are making, maybe don't have a huge audience. You know, maybe you're really, really good at what it is that you do. You're an expert in your own right, but you don't have a large audience and you don't have a large budget for ad spend. Or maybe even if you do have a large budget for ad spend, if you also want to introduce a mechanism to convert clients organically, that is where our process is for. So Miss Butterfly 21, I would recommend, like, it's really based off of what your business model is, more so than what industry that you're in. Because we've had successful clients who are in the nonprofit space. We've had successful clients in academics, in real estate, in the healthcare, accountants, therapists, doulas, business coaches, freelancers, consultants. Like, our process has worked for a lot of different industries. The commonality is they all sell services. They're focused on selling one-on-one at a high ticket price point, and they want to do it organically. So I hope that helps you there. Katie said, how do you keep the conversation going when no one shows up? So kind of a fun fact, okay, guys, and I think this has definitely contributed to me being able to keep talking when nobody shows up. Katie said, that's my biggest fear about going live, is I have a handful of clients from referrals, but my actual audience is incredibly low. And when you think about, Katie, one thing I want to reassure you is that even though we're doing about $300,000 a year, I want you to think about how small my audience is for what my revenue is. Right? I think, like Russell Brunson always says, you should expect to earn $1 per person on your email list. My email list is 5,000 people. I've been building my email list for 4.5 years. And we're able to do $300,000 a year off of a very small audience. Like, I don't even have 5,000 people who follow me on Facebook. I literally just got 10,000 followers on Instagram last month, and I've been building my Instagram for 5 years. So I have versus I know I have peers of mine who have email lists of 50,000 people, and maybe they do $1 million a year, but our profit margins are very similar. So I just want to give you guys that as context. But how do you keep the conversation going when no one shows up? So kind of an interesting backstory on me is when I was in college, I used to do auto shows for Chrysler. So if you guys have ever been to an auto show and you see the girls, not the naked ones standing next to the cars, that was not my role, but the girls who stand next to the car and they're like the product specialists and they're kind of just talking to you about the car. I used to do that in college, and I think that's definitely helped me now when I do live stream videos or podcasts, because I don't care if you show up. I'm still going to keep talking. And, you know, and I think too, like when you, Katie, like I think I look at when I go live, I look at this as a way for me to document my journey. Now, I never look at it as I need to create perfect content. I always look at it as, okay, what am I learning right now that can be valuable to my audience? What is, you know, just what am I doing in my life right now? What's the behind the scenes that might be valuable for somebody else? I'm always just talking like I would with my girlfriends. And I think too, like, you know, think about it like this in the same sense as well, as like if you were writing a blog post, it's the exact same thing that you'd be doing if you're talking live, but you're typing. And it's like, what do you do when you have, you know, or if you're recording a podcast, nobody showed up. You're recording by yourself in a room with a mic. There's nobody that's showing up. So I think it's really you have to focus on creating content, like not looking at it as if it's a, how do I say this? I wouldn't be so concerned about how many people show up. I'd just be more concerned about getting the message out. And also realizing too that in how Facebook works and how the algorithm is real, only about, if you're going live on Facebook or even on Instagram, you'll get about a 2% organic reach when you do anything. Live video gets about 10%, 6 to 10% of organic reach. So like literally people are not getting notifications, and like literally the algorithm is designed for like less people to see your content. So I'm really creating content banking on the people who are going to watch this in the replay, not the people that show up live. So that's something that just kind of a perspective shift for you. And then how do you keep the conversation going when no one shows up? Like, you know, you can always prepare what you're going to talk about, you know, have a topic, create a few bullet points, and just focus on, did I get the message across? More so than like, don't look at it like you're showing up to a live event and it's like, how do I speak on stage when nobody's in the audience? Like I don't look at live stream video like that. At least, so I mean, I think it's just a difference in how you choose to view it. But my thing is too, like kind of another internal question for you, Katie, is like, are you only gonna create good content when people show up? Like, is that the only time that you'll produce? Like, are you gonna do the work even if nobody shows up? Are you gonna provide value even if nobody shows up? And when you say show up, what does that mean, show up? Does that mean that they have to show up live or show up in the replay? Like when you say nobody shows up, what does that actually mean? And this is where I think we have to be careful about the language that we're using, because my students do this all the time in services that sell, well, yeah, I went live and nobody showed up. It's like people did show up. They just didn't show up when you went live. They showed up in the replay. They showed up to the next day. So it's like people did show up. And it's like, you still have to show up and deliver even if only one person is in that audience. Because even if just one person is in that audience, that's enough. Like, and I think it's also important, I think we get so caught up in vanity metrics on, and like literally guys, there's 11 of you guys on right now, live. And I can be like, well, nobody showed up. And it's like, how am I to discount all of you 11 human beings or 14 that are on Facebook to make it seem like you guys don't count, that you don't matter, right? Like people say, well, nobody showed up, only 6 people were there live. It's like, that's 6 human beings. And then sometimes I know in the beginning of my business, I had to think about it. Like if we were in my living room and I had 15 of you guys in my living room, that's a big crowd. Like that's a big crowd. And it's just never undervalue that one person that shows up, or that 16 that show up, or that 11 people that show up, because those are human beings that you're now able to provide value for. Like, even if I only change the 9 lives that are watching this live right now, that's enough for me. Like, that's 9 human beings I'm able to impact today. That's 14 people that are just catching this live. There's a ton of people who will catch us in the replay. You guys are choosing to be here versus, I don't know, walking your dog, or watching HBO Go and catching up on Succession, or doing whatever else in the world you could be doing right now besides listening to me. Like, I value that. And I think it is a reframe that is necessary. I'm not saying this to you, Katie, like you're doing something wrong. This is something that I even have to remind myself of, and have had to continuously remind myself of in the beginning, because I'm like, nobody's showing up. Because I used to think that I had to have a big audience to make a lot of money. And I've learned that no, you do not. When you sell high ticket, you need to have a minimum viable audience, a really niche specific audience that you're solving a specific problem for. You don't need a ton of clients to make a ton of money when you're selling high ticket. You know, I didn't need 5 or 6 people to sign up every month for me to make $300,000 a year. I don't need to have a ton. I don't need 1,000 of you to show up for me to buy my $19 product for me to make money. And I think that's a huge, huge shift in perspective that you have to make when you decide to sell high ticket. You don't need a ton of people. You don't. You know, you just need to go deep with a few people and get them to buy. That's it. So, yeah, Katie, treat lives like podcast episodes. It is way less daunting. And even for you, if it's easier for like, you can go live and never look at the camera. You can go live and never read any of the comments. I would maybe advise about that differently, but get to a point where you feel comfortable. Like you can pull out your microphone as if you were recording a podcast, and then just also pull up your phone and record live. And now you're doing a live stream, even though you're not looking at the camera. You know, that counts. You know, I think there's value in being able to have this interaction that we're having right now. But do what you have to do to get started. So great question. I think that was valuable for a lot of people on right now. And I'll answer this one and then I'm gonna hop off. So Coco Confidential said, I'd love to hear about how you prepare your audience for new offers when you're pivoting your business. And I think, guys, this is probably something that's super important. This is a really good question. Is you need to be preparing your audience before you sell anything, right? I think this is where I see my students go wrong before they enroll in services that sell. They'll be like, hey, Jay, I've been having my offer, I've been selling my service and nobody's buying. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? They're like, well, I'm creating content, asking people to buy, but they're not buying. And it's like, dude, there is a sales cycle that every client goes through before they're ready to make a purchase. And I always reference it to dating. So if you're only creating content that is sales content, meaning that like you create content that's like, hey, I have 6 spots open for my coaching program, sign up. Or, hey, I just did a blog post, go read it. Or, hey, I just did a live stream, go watch it. That's like you're telling somebody what to do. And if you're only like, that's like walking up to a guy or to a woman at a bar and being like, hey, let's get married. It's like, who are you? Like, you have to court your prospects. You have to woo your prospective clients. You have to date them. They have to date you before some people like to move and commit faster than others, but there's always a courting process with your prospects. There's always a courting process. So I like really think about your potential clients like dating. If you're only creating content that's like, buy my thing, hey, I showed up today, give me a kiss. And it's like, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. I don't know why I should listen to you. Like, who are you? You can't come out of the gate only strong. And this is where I think a lot of people go wrong too, is because they don't create conversation, which just like in anything else in life, there are conversations that you need to be having with your prospects to deepen that relationship, to, work them through your sales cycle, to qualify them, whether or not they're even qualified to work with you or that you're able to help them. Like there's a courting process with your prospects. So whenever you're pivoting your offer or introducing a new offer, or I think something that's important for you guys to realize too, that you don't need to keep making new offers. You can keep selling the same thing over and over again. And be extremely successful too, is just anytime you're about to go out there and start selling, this is why our lean launch is 8 weeks long. It's because most people, their sales cycle from the moment somebody discovers you to the moment they're ready to commit and actually buy, it takes 2 to 3 months. For some people, their sales cycle is longer. For some people, their sales cycle is shorter. But on average, I'd say you need to expect that when somebody discovers you, it'll take them at least 3 months to be able to buy from you. or be ready to make a decision on whether or not they will buy. And your sales cycle, your launch needs to reflect that natural sales cycle for how long it takes somebody to want to buy. So when you're introducing a new offer, and there's a podcast episode on this, but this is what the lean launch is. There's 3 levels of awareness that a client has to go through before they're ready to buy. You need to make content that fits those each of those levels of awareness. So there's product, there's unaware, problem aware, and solution aware phases that a client goes through before they're ready to make a buying decision. If you're only making content as if somebody knows what their problem is, knows what the solution is, and they're ready to make a buying decision, you're missing out on like 90% of your audience. So when you're pivoting your offers or introducing a new offer or even selling the same offer you've always sold, there needs to be kind of like this pre-launch content before you start making the hard sale. And that launch cycle should typically match up with what your natural sales cycle is. So if it typically takes you 3 months to, convert a client, and I don't mean how long it takes you to convert a client, but understanding what is my sales cycle, how long does it take somebody to buy from you after they've discovered me? If it's 2 or 3 months, your launch plan should be about that same time frame, and you need to be creating content that moves your prospect from those different levels of awareness. From, okay, I know what my problem is. Okay, I know what the solution is. Okay, this is why I need to buy your solution versus buying somebody else's. There is a process that it has to go through. So that is what I would recommend. If you're pivoting, which I'd say 90% of my clients pivot, is because they are introducing a high ticket offer or they're elevating their price point. In the marketplace, that is a pivot in their business model. Or people who are in leverage. Some of you guys are in leverage right now, or some of you guys might be interested in joining leverage, is you're repackaging your one-on-one offer and turning that into a leverage group coaching program. Still high ticket, still high touch point, but you're pivoting how you deliver it. There's always a pivot. You need to honor what the natural sales cycle is and create a launch that aligns with what your natural sales cycle is, but also moves people through that sales psychology of what I told you about. You have to align your marketing with how buyers make decisions and create content that matches up with those different layers of awareness that a client goes through before they're ready to buy. Does that make sense, guys? So that is what I would tell you, when you're pivoting in your offers, is you need to align your marketing with how buyers make decisions and honor what the natural sales cycle is for how, so people like, Jay, I want 15 clients by the end of the month, end of the year. It's like, well, you need to be launching right now. Like your lean launch needs to be in effect right now, for you to be able to create content that, Dominique, I don't have a book on this. This is my own intellectual property that I've created. So the book I would tell you to get is Go Get Services That Sell. This is something that we teach inside of Services That Sell. Module 3, the lean launch. That is what we teach. So that's something that I have. There's a ton of things that I've learned over the years to help me learn to create this process. But that is part of my IP. That's part of our framework and what we teach. So that is what I would recommend for you on that. Guys, I got the book. I wrote the textbook, which is Services That Sell, but I do not have a book to reference you on that one. Blessing said, I felt like I didn't know how to interview for module 1, so I posted message in 2 Facebook groups with my ideal clients. I've scheduled 4 meetings and feedback. Oh, Blessing, congrats. Blessing's one of our students, is an STS. Yeah, do the work until it works, like, guys. Get creative, put yourself out there, keep creating opportunities for conversations to happen. You said, sales psychology. You can Google it. If you Google sales psychology, there's a ton of research, articles, books about it. None that are coming to me off the top of my head in this second, though. But that's really, you have to, sales is all psychological. Negotiation is all psychological. Getting people to do, helping, and again, one thing I tell my students too in Services That Sell over and over again is the goal is not to get the yes. The goal is to get somebody to make a decision. The goal is to get somebody to make a decision. So when you're having a sales conversation, the goal is how do you get them to make a decision? If they say yes, great. If they say no, great. But the goal is how do you get them to make a decision? But yeah, so thanks for hopping on with me guys tonight. Such great questions, such really, 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 really good questions, everybody. I hope this was helpful for you. And my invitation to you guys is, if anybody here is interested in, introducing a high ticket offer in your business, selling your services organically, I would love for you guys to join my Facebook group. We have a ton of service-based business owners in there who are in the same boat as you, pivoting their business model, introducing high ticket offers, learning how to sell high ticket. So you can visit jerishahawk.com/join to sign up for that. It's completely free. Oh, Dominique, something I do want to tell you, and I'm just going to throw this out here, guys. This is an idea that I have. But a lot of people have been always very interested in our lean launch method and learning more about sales psychology and learning more about how to sell and align your marketing with how buyers make decisions. And I was doing like a brainstorming session last week, and I've been debating this idea of certifying people in the lean launch method, where you would literally get a deep dive. One, you get accredited to be able to do this, and to either do this within your own business or to teach this to your clients, or to coach people on it, is in the lean launch method, and how to sell high ticket services organically using sales psychology, using live video, and walking people through that process of the lean launch, but also understanding the strategies behind how the lean launch works. And just curious, will that ever be of interest to anybody on here to get certified in our lean launch method, to get coached, trained, and accredited, and being able to support other clients, or even to use it in your own business on how to more consistently attract qualified leads and convert clients just using organic methods? No Facebook ads, no webinars, no email sequences, none of that. I'd say that's something we've been dibbling and dabbling around. It's been an idea to certify. Chelsea's like, do it. But you would just get certified in the lean launch method. So that could be a business opportunity for you to go teach that to other people or coach people on it. Or like I said, for you to certify somebody on your team or yourself, so you could like really not know just how to launch, but like, okay, after you've launched, how do you evaluate that launch? How do you tweak things in that launch? What do you do to launch again? So I'm seeing some positive feedback. Yeah, that would be helpful. Okay, that's something we're thinking about doing. I'd be interested to be able to make. Katie, what do you mean? What do you mean, Katie? Certifying edge snatchers? Yeah, it would be ridiculous, Chelsea. Like, we got a bunch of just edge snatching straight shooters running these streets, getting people together, getting their sales together. But I think it's something that's important, especially how our industry is changing. So many business owners are relying 100% on Facebook ads to be the thing that attracts their clients and converts their clients. And Facebook ads are great. Paid advertising is great. But in order for you to increase your profit margins, you got to get good at organic sales and doing things organically in your business to attract clients, to move them through that sales cycle and to get them to buy. So it's something I'm thinking about, been brainstorming around. We're just wanting to get some feedback on that. I'm seeing people that say that'd be helpful. I'd be interested in this. Okay. More to come. We're going to be rolling out some new stuff in November, December, and January. So turn your notifications on, because there's going to be opportunities to get more direct coaching from me. And to really, I know a lot of you guys have been growing in your business and you're being successful and you're ready. Okay, like Jay, I've been rocking with you for the last 2 years. Like, what's the next level? It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. So keep your notifications on, because I got y'all. But yeah, so thanks for tuning in, y'all. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye, everyone.